All right, it looks like we could go and get started. Thanks for coming today. We're going to be talking about PureConnect integration options. Some of you that have been around PureConnect for a while have probably seen some of this before. I do know that there are a lot of people who have not yet tried PureConnect or are looking at it, and this is a great way to get some baseline information, get knowledge about what should be on your radar, what different options there are to look at. I'm James Percival. I'm Principal Software Architect within PureConnect. I've been working on PureConnect since 2000, just hit the 19-year mark. So I've been around for all the major integrations. I was either a developer on those, an architect, or a manager. So if you have questions after the session, please let's talk a little bit more while we're here face-to-face. That's a great opportunity. The agenda here is that I want to talk a little bit about sort of what I call beyond off-the-shelf. And then we want to talk about how you bring your own developers, make it yours, empower your people, and then generally sort of combining two topics into one, a whole bunch of developer resources that help you integrate with PureConnect. And part of the reason this is structured with bullet points is I find a lot of value in referring to a PowerPoint later, and I think you will too. There's a lot of good notes on here for reference beyond what I'll be able to possibly pack into an hour. So when I say off the shelf, I'm referring to the third-party integrations that you're probably familiar with. We have integrations with PureConnect to Salesforce and Oracle, Link, Zendesk, a whole variety, including the Pure Cloud platform itself. And these are all wonderful, especially PureConnect for Salesforce. If you have Salesforce in your shop and haven't looked at that integration, I highly encourage it. It's a really good integration with a lot of power. And these are definitely things you need to look at. You have to make integrations work. That's what developers typically do for us. However, what we're looking at is what they can do to build new things, new integrations, not just to others' software, but to what your software needs to do to your company. So that's what we talk about when we say beyond off-the-shelf. And in particular, we're looking at ways that you can put your mark on the software. So it's not just a Genesis product, it's an integration with your customer site or your partner, put your branding on it, make it yours, and then enable your developers to get more done with less effort, which is obviously what you want, because you want to get more integrations out there and make some money. So why do you want to bring your own developers? You could hire, for those of you that aren't already a partner, you could hire a partner to do that, or you could hire Genesis. Well, there's cases where your own developers have a lot of value too. As you know, they're your superstars. They know your culture, and they understand your product and your vertical better than possibly those other people you might bring in. So there are cases for both, but I definitely want to encourage you that have developers in-house to enable them to do integrations via their special knowledge. In particular, the key API that you'll hear about again and again, if you haven't been hearing it year after year for a while now, for those of you that have been around, is our Interaction Center Web Services API. And this is a RESTful web service. It follows all the expectations you would have on a REST API. It can be integrated for multiple environments. It replaced our more venerable API that we'll talk about in a moment, and enabled web-based integrations. So our very own products like Interaction Connect, our client agent application, it's web-based, is written on top of ICWS. We eat our own dog food just like we always have with our public API, which is really good for us because we get more testing out of it, and really good for you because you know that the APIs you're consuming are being used for real things by Genesis, and we need to make sure that it works for us as well as you. ICWS is pretty easy to get started. Generally, everyone that takes a stab at it feels good about it. It's pretty consumable and consistent. We have a lot of documentation. There's clear versioning so that you know whether a given API is supported by the version you're on. And there's some other interesting helpful bits in there, like example apps. And there's also some sort of helper libraries that make it easier with C# or JavaScript if you don't want to roll REST calls directly there. And ICWS came to build upon all the learnings we had with our first .NET public API, which was a .NET API, Interaction Center Extension Library, iSlide. And this is near and dear to a lot of people's hearts. They wrote a lot of integrations off this. They still do. It's probably 12 or 13 years old now. Definitely rich and mature. We generally aren't expanding on iSlide. We tend to put all new investment into ICWS. However, everything that's in iSlide works, and for those of you that are doing desktop integrations nowadays, .NET based, it's still a great way to integrate. Has good documentation, has 13 example apps, I believe. Maybe we'll do another one as we get each new year and it's live, just for the heck of it. And then we have another major way that you can make the integrations your own is through web chats and callbacks. So we had an older API called Interaction Web Tools, and this is where you could, for your end consumer website, embed chat so that your customers could interact with the agents on top of the PureConnect platform. And we've since expanded this so that those API mechanisms are available through ICWS, or RESTful API. And so that's pretty convenient, again. And in fact, going beyond that, now with the Genesis merger, we've integrated Genesis widgets. So you can use the wonderful user experience of proactive chat and the chat interfaces that widgets brings with PureConnect. And again, this allows your website to expose chat very easily for proactive chat and connecting with your agents. So then the next category I like to talk about here is making it yours. So it's all well and good that you can integrate with the system, but if you're a partner or you're a customer and you're trying to maybe motivate your agents in a particular way, there's a particular way that you want to construct the application or brand it, and a lot of times that's why some choose to use the integrations. It's not just that they want to do something else beyond what is there or their special sauce, but they just want it to look like theirs. They have a certain user experience they're going for, or they want to remove some pieces and have just specific bits to keep their agents on task. All these things are possible with the APIs. And that's where you can put your fingerprints on it, because managers like to say, add your magic and maybe experiment a little bit with some ideas for UX that we have. Some of the main things that are interesting here are what we call customization points. So those of you that have worked with with PureConnect for a long time, remember that we have Interaction Designer. And this is a very venerable interface. It is not new cutting-edge UI and UX. However, it works. And all of PureConnect is built on top of this guy. It's a visual programming mechanism. You can chain your program logic together and do some incredibly complex things. Some of our partners, it wows you when you see what they've pulled off with this. And all of our core routing of PureConnect is built on top of this. So the way interactions route through calls and chats and emails route through the system, the way our ACD system works, and some of the IVR mechanisms, how agents are prompted for calls, all this is built on top of this logic. And you can, in fact, manipulate that. So we expose, as part of our core routing, these handlers, as they're called, with customization points, so you can affect how things operate on top of the system. And you can do some pretty complicated integrations, intercept calls for web service logic to do whatever you need to with those incoming messages. There's a lot you can do. I mean, it really is ripe for integration. If the public APIs don't accomplish it, often you can go into the handlers and accomplish it anyway. And especially now that we have the web services integration, it's been 2 years now or so, but in case you weren't aware, we added on top of the old SOAP handler tools, there are now REST handler tools. It makes it very convenient to call your REST API. And a lot of people find it more convenient nowadays to do an integration, not mess with SOAP anymore. Additionally, we have, for agents, two main interfaces: the Interaction Desktop application, which is a desktop .NET-based application, and then Interaction Connect, which is a more modern reactive web application. Those are built on top of our public APIs. The desktop's built on top of iSlide, the web on top of ICWS. And Interaction Desktop has what we call add-ins. So you can put in your own bits of UI, actually present UI to the agent. You can react to calls coming in, integrate to iSlide and perform your integration and perform lots of different special things. I've seen all sorts of panels that are calling out to their CRMs, calling out to individual mechanisms they want their agents to check in on. There's just really no end to it. Interaction Connect also has add-in capabilities, but unfortunately it doesn't yet have UI, so you can perform reactions to incoming interactions, but you can't pop your own user interface currently. Talk to a piano. The last major point, which of course we all end up modifying the system and making it our own, is through IVR. And our also venerable UI is Interaction Attendant, which was a very simplified, to get started quickly, IVR. That has a lot of power, just the UI is maybe the most modern. As a way to modernize that, we have since added an integration with Genesis Intelligent Automation. It used to be called GAP, for those of you who've been around a while on the Engage side. It's pretty amazing. I'm really happy to see that integration with PureConnect. You're able to have a very nice user interface experience for designing it. You get templates available out of the box for getting you started more quickly with your IVRs. And then it brings some of the more complex capabilities going from voice to chat, back and forth, chat on the mobile. It's a pretty interesting integration for those of you that haven't looked at that yet. And we've had some people do some pretty complex IVRs via handlers as well, and it's very doable. Just keep your line straight. There's a lot going on with the full IVR and handlers. So finally, we have all these great capabilities for your developers, but how do we help them get it done more quickly? Because there's just so much to learn, and so many options. Well, generally we're looking at, I guess I should give them their due. We want them to develop at your speed. Your developers can go quickly. We want to streamline your investment in those developers by helping them get things done more quickly. And then finally, we want to build on your innovation. I don't know if anyone's outbound dialer shop, but good. I've been around dialer since 2000, off and on. Dialer's near and dear to our hearts in PureConnect. And we have a lot of capabilities there. So you can create completely custom scripts for your agents, full web pages, essentially, that get popped to them, react to incoming interactions, interact with your CRMs, give them the scripts to read, integrate with your sales tools, your catalogs, whatever it is you need to do, you can do it all. As a stepping stone to that, we also have something called Base Scripter, which is sort of a very simple way to just prompt your agents. It's very good for where your tracking tool is sort of outside of our product, and your simple routing calls and letting the agent just have a disposition on that call, whether it's successful or not. And I think rather than go into a lot of detail here, if you are looking at Dialer, I encourage you to look at the scripting capabilities. And there's also a lot of public API elements to that, where you can react to those events and perform integration from your application to react to dialer calls being prompted, an outbound call getting through to a person and not a machine, for instance. And configuring those, it's all through the API. We also have an IPA product, which was our attempt at workflow tracking. It's still around, but we don't really push it that much anymore. Does anybody use IPA? Yeah, we'll move on. Oh, I didn't say that. And then Latitude is an interesting integration. It's our accounts receivable management solution. A lot of customers are very happy with this. It's the result of an acquisition many years ago that Interactive made, and we've integrated into our platform. They have a very rich number of integrations. In fact, if you can see my notes, it fills 2 pages of notes. So again, I hope that these slides will be out there with notes, and there's a lot available online, but since I think most of you are not working with collections, we'll move on unless anyone really wants to hear the slide. Okay, in the interest of time. So now we better developers know what they can do and knowing how to get it done more quickly. But there's still a lot of things that come up as a developer. How do you find out answers to your questions? How do you learn everything? And so we want to spin through these slides and talk about the different support elements that are out there for the developers, or for you if you're developers. Of course, I assume everyone's aware of Genesis University, our training site. I wanted to point out that there are over 10 courses available for PureConnect topics. Sometimes these can slip through the cracks if you're not sort of looking for them. And so there's quite a few elements here for administering your CIC system, which is our core server for PureConnect, configuring call flows, doing handler development, again with interaction designer. So it's a great way if you feel like a developer is going to need to do some more advanced integrations to get them some experience on handlers and kind of get over that initial hump. They've got some basics of how to use it. They can know how to navigate the available tools and the documentation and be able to get going more quickly. Dialers on there. What I found interesting that they've expanded these, so there are some instructor-led courses, but more and more now they're also self-study online. So it becomes an even better value proposition for you to send your developers to it. You don't have to send them physically to us. And then you can go on your schedule and make them train as soon as you need them to, which is pretty cool. Genesis Knowledge Network is, I think this was about a year ago they started rolling this out. And it's kind of meant to be a hub. So all these different available resources throughout the company have been pulled, they pulled their breadcrumbs to this site, and you can find out how to get to the documentation, or how to get to Genesis University, or what's the latest news, or where's the developer site. And I think it's a great way, a great sort of landing point to get started. And a lot of the things in this talk have links from there, but not everything. They've been expanding it quite a bit. I've been happy with the direction they've taken this. And I strongly suggest if you have other things that you recommend that get included in there to give that feedback to that site, to the knowledge site. We seem to be very responsive to adding new tiles on there. I think it's good stuff. And then we have the PureConnect Resource Center, as they call it. And this started with the documentation site that we had for PureConnect, and they've built around that even more than the rich documentation to add training videos, lots of useful resources. There's a great thing that they did is they actually put searchable release notes in README. So every time PureConnect releases, which is on a quarterly basis, we have pretty rich notes that talk about all the new things that are added, the issues that were addressed, and these are now online and searchable, whereas previously there were some fairly dense documents. And if you want to relive some of the pain of how large those were and how difficult to dig through, talk to Jim Hendry there. He was key to that back in the day when he was with us. And the technical reference documents also contain a lot of detail that can come up for integration developers that doesn't necessarily fit anywhere else in the documentation. It's more around product and API. This is how you integrate, or the details of the inner workings of how some things work, such as for a larger integration, we have Session Manager, which helps with N+1 scalability to all the different client applications. There's a lot of details in there about how Session Manager performs that work and how you might size. And so again, if you're looking for more technical information, I would sift through those. And definitely visit that site. I've been happy with the direction they've gone there too. And finally, we have a small developer portal for PureConnect. To be honest, there's not a lot on here, but it does have the downloads of the SDKs for ICWS and iSlide. There's some quick reference guides, which can be helpful for a new developer. It's aging a little bit, but it does have these downloads, and it's a good one place for to download those, so I'll be sure and point it out to you.
Just a side note, the version of that, they're behind on that. It's like the community technology review ones that we were making, those were there. Now they're just the current version.
Okay. If you could remind me, you're actually talking, we'll fix that up. Thank you. And then, yes, I'm putting ICWS and iSlide on here a second time as a developer resource because I want to really highlight the SDKs. The example apps are incredibly valuable for your developers to get started. It's not just pull up the API documentation and try to see what you can do, but looking at those example apps, seeing how some common things were done using it, that teaches you so much more. And so I wanted to highlight the SDKs add a lot of value, as well as just, again, the documentation. There's a lot of conceptual content in both iSlide and ICWS that goes beyond just sort of what the APIs and methods and properties are. It actually talks about how watches work and how configuration works in the system and how to establish a session. All these sort of high-level things are just, they're so great to get the developer started. And I just want to make sure that you're aware and getting that onto the radar of your people who are looking at it. So there's also a grab bag of things. A couple of interesting points on this. It's still Attendant.com. Apologies, I haven't gotten this one updated to Genesis.com yet. But this product information site for PureConnect has a database schema documentation, which if you end up needing to do direct integration to the PureConnect database is really handy because you can see exactly how all the different tables and properties and even everything about the database is exposed. And one thing that's great also is that it includes a change library, so you can see from one release, maybe where you wrote your integration, to a year later, when you're trying to verify it'll work for your customer, you can have assurance that the API, the schema differences do not affect your integration. Of course, we never remove things, we don't break things, but it's helpful to know what's new, what's been expanded upon that you might be using from your integration. Then in this product information site, there are also some system utility bits that are useful for managing your test PureConnect instances, your servers. There's some helpful database scripts, some testing utilities. There's just literally a grab bag of things. So some of it's useful, some of it's not. Take a look, see what works for you. But it's hard to find, so I want to be sure and highlight it. And then, of course, there's the Genesis community site, which I think has been pretty successful. It's nice to see that you can get on there once again and help each other out, find answers to your questions, help provide some answers for pain you went through and save someone else some time, pay it forward or back, whichever way it is for you. And there's a lot going on there. They're also in a very active community of people who manage that site, so if you have some suggestions, I encourage you to give them your feedback about the community. They're trying to definitely keep expanding it, making it better. That's good. And then you heard at the end of the kickoff session about the app boundary, so I won't really go into too much detail here. But it's really interesting. You can, as a partner, create your integration, or as an enterprising developer, create your integration, put it on here, and get it some pre-exposure, so to speak. Be able to sell it to some other people. Or if you're a developer being asked to make something big, you might find that there's already a good integration on here that would solve the need, and it might be better value for your company to use that existing app boundary entry rather than build it again for you. So it's definitely something worth looking so you understand exactly what's out there and what your options are. And it's a great avenue to get your brand and your product socialized out. The last one would be the ideas site, and we use this as a way to document what people are asking for and take the top few most asked for ideas and integrate those into our product management roadmap. Obviously, we don't have a high turnover, so no snickering, but we do produce some of them. And it's most valuable if you're providing your ideas and we can see what the majority of you feel is the next best thing to work on. This site also has gotten quite a bit of additions in the last year or two, so if you have suggestions, please give it to that team. It's based on top of AHA, which seems like a pretty good software platform for this to be on compared to past ones. And you can always upvote ideas, not just create ones. So, there we go. These are the different ways that you can encourage your developers to learn, to develop integrations that fit your particular brand as a partner, or that produce exactly how you want it to look for your agents, to add capabilities that were not available out of the box with PureConnect, and to essentially get your developers started as quickly as possible, because time is money and you want them producing all the best work they can as quickly as they can. So that's what we have, and I'm going to be around for a few minutes for questions, intentionally leaving extra because we typically have a lot more discussion on the one-on-ones than is important in the slides. The slides tell you what's available. It's on your radar. Make sure it's on your developer's radar. There's so much more to learn out there than you're going to get in a 1-hour presentation that you got to know to go look.